Hello, today we are talking about 25 days left of diesel fuel in the country. And if you don't know it, diesel is what our country runs on, pretty much everything. You cannot have diesel. I mean, if there's no diesel, our country will not run.
You might say, I don't have a big pickup, so I don't really care. But the truth is, it's not big pickups. It's all the trucks that move the stuff to you or to the places where you buy things and all the trains. So if you go to the grocery store and you want lettuce has to be shipped from somewhere, and that runs on a truck or a train that's powered by diesel. Medical supplies, anything you buy. So rising price on diesel will cause rising prices on everything.
Everything. And it could stop everything. Meaning, just imagine if there weren't trucks on the road going anywhere at all. I mean, just think about that. Like literally every single thing in this country is run on diesel. Now, there have been rumors going around that there's only 25 days left of diesel. Yes, that is true. That is very true. So why is there only 25 days left of diesel, dear?
Well, just like anything else, fuels run on a supply and demand situation. And in our country, their supply has been reduced, partly because when our president came in office, he decided that it was better to stop producing as much oil here because it's better for the environment if we buy it from Russia, and they produce it in Russia.
That makes
and then we buy
sense.
it from Russia so they can use it to do their war against
it.
Ukraine.
Doesn't cause that green religion if it's made in Russia or China than if it's done here, right? That's
right.
How it
they
works.
don't pollute the environment over there.
Oh, okay, that's how it works.
And because we closed the country down for 2 years, refineries couldn't make money because people weren't buying fuel. So a couple of giant refineries closed permanently. And they closed permanently because once they're closed, the government has a lot of regulations that make it difficult to reopen those refineries. So supply is down. Meanwhile, now that people are finally free to live their lives again, they're driving more and buying more stuff. And because of that, there's a greater demand. Now, the other thing also is that diesel is not just for trucks that move the things that you buy from Amazon or Walmart or your local family mom and pop grocery store. All those places get it off of trucks that use diesel. But it also is part of the same process that provides heating oil for homes and other things like that. So when you use a lot more in diesel, it potentially creates difficulty on those other things. So that's how...
Meaning prices are going to go way up.
So what it probably means is prices are going to go way, way up on diesel and heating oil. And unfortunately, this is a problem that was avoidable, or at least could have been reduced with good management. But primarily the government interference has led to this.
Okay, so do we really have 25 days of diesel left? Yes, we do. But this is where Tara says you got to get a perspective on this and see what the real facts are. So according to oilprice.com, the U.S. distillate fuel inventories are about 20% below the 5-year average for this time of year. According to the EIA's latest weekly inventory report, the U.S. has just 25 days of diesel fuel or diesel supply in reserve, with some regional markets very tight. Wow, that sounds really, really bad, doesn't it?
It does. It sounds awful.
But you want to know
25
what?
25 days, the whole world stops. That's the way it sounds when people say that.
So do you know what that means? That means that on any given day, we only have, if you figured 31 days. If it's 20% below, that means we normally only have a 31-day supply of diesel on hand at any given time. Okay, that's not good, but...
Yeah, you have to be a little careful with how the news portrays things, because even though there is a shortage and it's going to cost you and us and everybody,
it's not life-threatening.
It's not as life-threatening as they make it sound, because that 31 days or 25 days, however many days of fuel are left, is a rolling average, which means it's like you having $100 in your emergency account, savings account, and your family only spends that money if there's a disaster. Well, there is a disaster now, and they might dip into that, and it might shorten the number of days. But as long as they're still producing on the other end, it doesn't mean that it's all going to run out in 25 days.
Yeah.
But what it means is if they don't get their act together and figure out how to solve the problem, then that buffer amount will get to be less and less.
Now, I did call the shipping company that supplies our cookbooks for us here in my town. Everything they run is on diesel. So I'm like, okay, they're going to know what the shortage is and what we should do and all this. So I called them, and the lady was like, what do you mean there's only 25 days left of diesel? I said, well, that's the rumor going around. She said, well, I have heard nothing about it. I said, you've heard nothing about a diesel shortage? She said, no, we haven't heard anything about it. I said, seriously? She said, yeah. She said, we haven't heard one thing. So I would think that if it was this bad, that trucking companies that run their business on diesel would be knowing to start preparing for a shortage. And she had no clue.
Well, now there's a supplier on the East Coast that said that in their area that there are going to be some pretty significant shortages for some of the trucking companies. And there, the trucking companies, because they're smart, some of them will sort of stockpile some fuel for themselves. Unfortunately, that makes the demand higher on the system at the time when they're doing that. So that can still be a problem. But the kind of what it really means is that there won't probably be a time where there just won't be any fuel there.
Yeah.
It's just that you might have to pay $20 a gallon for it. Or how that translates to other things is you might have to pay, how much are eggs right now?
Well, they just went up. They're like $5 for 18 now.
So you might have to pay $7 for your eggs
Yeah.
because the price of the fuel goes up. So just everything that you buy in your normal life will get more expensive as long as that price of diesel is really high, and it will stay high as long as there's a shortage.
Yeah.
The shortage doesn't mean it's going to be totally out. It just means that people are going to have to decide, how important is it for me to use this today? And if you're a business that's selling things, it's going to be real important to you because you have to keep your doors open. If you're a person at home with a diesel vehicle, you might say, I don't know if I can afford to drive this as much today.
But then you're not going to be able to sell it because who wants to buy diesel car or truck when you can't
Yeah.
get gas for it?
But that's where you can choose, because you as an individual, unless you're affiliated with that industry or the regulatory agencies that are overseeing them, you don't necessarily have the ability to force change in that area. But what you can do is think about how to reduce the cost for yourself at
So
home.
you're going to have to lower your thermostat. If you have a diesel vehicle, of course, you're going to have to stop driving so much, combined trips, your typical money-saving tips. But, your heater may have to be set on 60 degrees. You're going to have to put on a sweater. You're going to have to put on socks. You're going to have to bundle up in the house. Is that fun? No, but it's what you're going to have to do. At least you still have some form of heat and you're not freezing in your house. You got to keep it in perspective.
When you can't control things, you need to focus on the things you can control. However, I will say, as an election is coming up, if you vote for...
Let me say, this is a direct result of the 2020 election.
It's a direct result of how people vote. And the thing about voting is, if you say fossil fuels are bad, we shouldn't have any fossil fuels, then this is what you're voting for. And you're going to have to pay more. And you're choosing that, and that's the way it is. Mm-hmm. If you vote for people that dislike those things. Now, there are some things where you say, man, I don't know, I am kind of worried about stuff in the atmosphere. That's fine. There are ways to deal with those problems. But if you vote to just cut off the whole supply, like if you see your tree and it seems like it's not so healthy, so you decide to just cut it down, it's a lot less healthy when you cut it down. I would say also, about those refineries that were shut down, because there was a lot less demand because everybody was staying home. That's where it's useful to think, is this the best way to handle this situation? Yes, something scary is coming along and people are worried about it. Is the best thing to do to shut everything down? Because now, 2 years later, this is the cost. And it's going to get worse for sure in the next 6 months. It could get worse continuing a lot longer than that. But even if everybody turned everything around today,
it'd still take time to catch up.
It's still going to be 6 months before it could catch up.
Now, one thing to say, it appears that it's only about 4 or 5 states, 5 or 6 states, 4 to 6 states,
5 or 6
somewhere
states are
in
going to
that,
have severe
that are going to have real issues with
shortages
this.
on that. But the thing is,
of course, I find it interesting. They're all back east, where they're very into the green religions.
But it's in the south. It's in the southeast, though. So
well,
less.
they were saying
the
New York
northeast
and
is
all that.
having heating oil problems, and we're buying it from Europe to supply the northeast. And what people don't understand is Europe gets it from Russia. So when we say we're not buying from Russia because we don't agree with what they're doing over there with their war, well, yeah, if we're buying it from Europe and Europe's buying it from Russia, we're buying it from Russia. So,
and unfortunately, the problem is the solution is simple. Just open it up. It's like we were talking the other day, and our 19-year-old was sitting over here, and he's like, it's too bad we don't have a pipeline, where we could get this for us.
Like from Canada or somewhere.
A 19-year-old can figure this out. But this is a direct result. Tuesday's elections, you have a choice. And this is not an election video, but this is a direct result of the results of the 2020 election.
Yeah, it's one of the significant causes. You can say supply and demand, and that's true. But supply is down for political reasons, not for anything else. And by the way, I would say, if you're a person who's super worried about what's going to happen with the environment and everything, there are ways to get to where you want to be without just cutting off the tree at the roots. And one of those things in Wyoming right now, they're doing an experiment where they're building a plant that takes carbon out of the air. It's basically like a big fish tank filter. And I know that may sound silly to some people, but that would be a good solution in the intermediary where we try to figure out how to get where you want to go.
But heaven forbid,
If that's where we actually want to go.
but heaven forbid, these same people who are into the green religion, heaven forbid you turn your thermostat down.
Well, that's the thing is, if it really concerns you, then you should be happy to have less. If
You should be happy to have your thermostat at 60 degrees. If
it's
you voted for
urgent-
this, then
yeah, if it's urgent that these things aren't produced, and some people glue themselves to things and stand in the middle of the street, and then they whip out their iPhone to take a selfie. I'm like, that iPhone is made with oil. All of it's made with oil. So you
Yeah.
got to be consistent with yourself. So if that's the way that you think, then congratulations, you're getting what you want.
Yep.
But if you don't like it, I would be thoughtful when you're considering what the positions are of the candidates you vote for. And I would also then say, I can't control it beyond that. And what can I do at my house to try to reduce the impact on me?
Yep. All right, guys, that's what's happening. Only 25 days left of diesel in the country. But guess what? On a regular basis, we only have 30 days, 31 days.
So don't always listen to everything that the news tells you that sounds scary.
That's a crisis, but not a huge, huge crisis. Go watch this video next on easy ways to save money and beat inflation, livingonadime.com.